Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome everybody to today's Chat with our Merlin Expert series. Today's topic is using Merlin's tools to communicate with your damn users. And I did have fun writing that. As always, just let's cover some webinar guidelines. We're going to make this short and sweet. It will be less than 30 minutes. I am recording the session, so you will be able to find it on our YouTube page. Please ask questions in either the chat window or the question window. We'll try and monitor that as we go through this. And of course, your questions do not need to be related to this month's topic. And of course, if you have an idea or a suggestion for a topic that you'd like us to cover in the future, please let me know. We'd be happy to entertain that. Okay, so these are the things we want to talk about today. Different ways that you can use Merlin tools, the tools in Merlin, that is, to communicate with your users. And so we've got a lot of things to talk about today. We're going to talk about on-screen messages that are available to your users. We're going to talk about how you can share content with your users or with external users, and that could be sharing an image or sharing a contact sheet. We're going to remind you how you can share a link to a large thumbnail. I was actually reminded of this functionality today. It's something that had slipped my mind, but I think it's a really quick and easy way to send someone a quick link to somebody if you wanted to do that. We're also going to talk about how you can email alerts to your search results, and I'll show you some examples of that. How you can share a link to a collection or a saved search. This would be for your internal users. How you can share the Merlin ID with an internal user with a simple mouse click. And how you can comment on an item, which is a kind of a simple approval workflow, and a more complex approval workflow where you can actually email requests to approvers to approve content. So we're going to go through and talk about each one of these things. Okay, so why don't I switch to Merlin real quickly. So we're going to get out of our PowerPoint or Keynote presentation, and we're going to switch to Merlin. And we're going to cover each one of these topics. And so the first thing I wanted to kind of mention is Merlin conveys a lot of information at a glance to individuals. And so you can see I'm pointing to this picture of Horseshoe Bend, and you can see it's got star ratings across the top of it. It's got icons in the upper right-hand corner. It's got labels and dates at the bottom of the image. And it also has color codes. And in addition to that, we give you a legend for all of that information and more. So when you do a mouse rollover on an image, you get the hover text, is what we call it. And it reveals information about the picture at a glance, so you don't have to go over and refer to the metadata palette, because key information is available in the hover text. So that's a great way to convey information to your users. And this is configurable. So what I want to do is just real quickly remind you how you can configure the hover text. So in addition to the stars, you also have an icon in the upper right-hand corner. In this case, it's got my initials as an icon because I am the creator, or my name is in the byline of those pictures. So I just want to quickly go into the administration area and remind you of two things that are very helpful here. We've got something called color codes, and we've got something called badge config. Badge config is fairly new, so let's talk about color codes first as a reminder. So when you go to color codes, and let's give this a half a moment to populate. When you go to color codes, you have the option of selecting 4 different fields in your Merlin system to be associated with 4 different shapes. And so as soon as this populates for me, there we go, you can see that I have marked, or I've mapped, the circle to be the creator title or byline title. I've mapped the triangle to the rights usage terms field. I've mapped the square to the approved field. and I've mapped consent given, the diamond to the consent given field. So these are the 4 shapes I've got available to me and the fields that I've mapped them to. And by clicking any one of these, you can see how I've done this mapping. So for example, under the creator title, if it says staff in the creator title, it's going to put a green circle. If it says freelance in the creator title, it's going to put a yellow circle. And this is very, very configurable. So if you wanted to add another photographer title, so we're going to make contractor and we're going to make it red. So because we're concerned about if things are shot by a contractor, because we may have to pay them again. So I'm going to add that to my list, and I'm going to click Update Groups, and it's going to save these settings. So if I were to modify the creator title in one of my records to be contractor, I would get a red circle. Okay, so that's a little bit about my color codes. And again, this may be different for different user groups, and I'm doing this for my default user group, but you can set this to be different for all of your user groups in Merlin with a simple mouse click, and you can see I've got all of these different groups. So you could set a different group, and that would take precedence over the default group if you set that up. Now, let's go to badge config, and you can see I can control where my stars appear, so they can be on the left side of the image. I set it to be stars, and on the right side I set it to be badges, and I've also included some other badges on the right hand side that I can choose to remove. I've got a linking badge if something has been marked as linked. I've got a versioning badge if something's marked as versioned. I've got a commented badge, so if someone has commented on an item, the commenting badge will show up. And if I am the creator, it's actually doing a custom badge, and so you can actually use our default badges. So you can see linked has preset settings. Okay, it's not customizable. Same thing with versioned and commented. But because I added creator to this list, it is a custom value. And so it's basically saying if it finds my name in the creator field, to use a custom badge that we've uploaded on the server. And this is a set of badges that I created. So I created a little tiny 12 pixel by 12 pixel badge that represents my initials. This could be a badge for different wire services or different photographers or different types of pictures. And so it's real easy to set this badge up to convey information at a glance. And same thing in the rest of my gallery hover area. You can choose the information that appears in the gallery hover area. Okay, and just as a reminder, that's all of this information that you're seeing here. So you can remove some of these things if you think you're overloading your users with too much information, or if you want to give them more information, you can do that by configuring what badges and what information appears in the gallery hover. So that's a little bit about on-screen messages. I'm just going to go check and see if I have any information. Can you give the rights on a green color? Yes, you can. And so, not a border color. No, I'm sorry, Jan. It's strictly one of these 4 shapes. I cannot give it a border color, but that is something that I'm going to make a note of. And we'll share that with our developers. Okay, so let me go see if I have any. Those are the questions. Okay. All right. So let me go back and get back on track here. So some of this stuff is pretty basic. We've talked about it in other webinars. It's pretty basic Merlin. But for example, if I wanted to share an image with a user, it's real easy to do that. I can click the image or images and use my share functionality button here. That's this right arrow facing tool. I can click on that. And these are all of the different ways I can share content with different users. So I can email a link to somebody, okay? So this is where I can type in email addresses, and I have options here. I can choose to apply a crop or resample the image, or even convert the image to another file format on download if I do this, okay? And you can see that the to field is a required field, so I have to type an email address in there. So that's one way to share information with an external user. I can also email a contact sheet to an external user. And what's really nice about this is if the user has download privileges, which I do, of course, they can allow the contact sheet to inherit download privileges by clicking this checkbox, okay, and typing in an email address. So I'm going to complete that email address. And you have the option of changing the email subject if you want to. You have the option of changing the description. And you have the option of adding email text that accompanies the email. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click Generate the Preview. And what it's going to do here is it's going to show you what your users will see when they click on the link that gets emailed to them. And you can see I've got a download button. And if I click on that, it will download the picture into my browser so that I may save it. And I can click Send, and it's going to actually send the email, but it's also putting up the email link here in case I wanted to copy and paste that and use that in other emails as well. So I've got the opportunity here to copy this email link and share it with other users. So we've talked about sharing an image, we've talked about sharing a contact sheet. Let me show you something that's really, really basic, but it's kind of fun. In the single view, you can do a right mouse click and you can copy the image address. Okay, that was hard. And then you could email that to somebody. You could paste it into an email. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open a separate browser. So I'm now in Chrome instead of in Safari. And I'm going to paste that in. And there is my link. And look, it's opening up the preview in a separate browser. In order to do this, I don't need to have access to Merlin. It can be done by anybody. Okay, so a simple right mouse click, copy the link to the large thumbnail, and you can share that link with other users. Okay, so let's swing back to Merlin. Oops, I think I just bailed out of Merlin. Let me log back in again, I'm sorry. Okay, here we are again. So now I want to talk about emailing alerts to people. So this is yet another way to share content with people. So everybody is probably familiar with how to create a saved search, and they can be shared or they can be private. So I've got a saved search here for Cityscape, and I can double click on that. It's going to run the search and show you the results. And so I've got all of these items that are part of this saved search. But if I want to, I can actually share this search with other users. And so down here in my tools for my saved search palette, one of the options is alerts, okay? And so if I select that, I can type in one or more email addresses, okay, and save that as an alert. And let me show you the end results of what people will see on the other end. So let me open my email real quickly, and what I want to do is go, to here. So I'm not quite the right place. And so here is an example of a Merlin alert email. Okay, so you can see here that it's telling you at the top that Merlin Alerter has found 5 new items of interest. It tells you when the alert was created, and it's also telling you what the search is running. Okay, so that's what I'm doing right here. And so it's giving me the caption, if there were a caption for these pictures, and the thumbnails. And of course, this is clickable. So if I were to click on this, it would log me back into Merlin and show me the results of that alert, okay? And alert services are set up so that you're not hammered with spam from Merlin by getting repeated emails over and over and over as you're uploading lots of content. So that's using an email alert to search results, okay? So that's that. Let's talk about sharing a link to a search result, to a saved search, or to a collection. It works exactly the same. So I could have any of my search saved searches here in my search palette, And again, I can go to my search tools and say, yes, I'd like to email a link to somebody. And I, again, fill out the form, but also I have the opportunity to copy the URL, which is exactly the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to copy that URL, and rather than actually emailing the link, so I'm going to shortcut this, and I'm going to go back to my browser over here, and I'm going to, in a separate browser, and I'm going to paste that link in, and it's going to take me to Merlin. I'm going to log into this separate Merlin instance, and it's going to take me straight away to the search results. Okay, so I didn't touch anything on my mouse, and you can see here are the search results, and it's even telling you it's searching for cityscape up here, and if you click the I button down here, it will confirm that it's searching for the word cityscape. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now I'm going to close this. So, and I can do exactly the same thing with collections, okay? So I have all of these collections, and I've got one called Best Sports Photos, and we'll take a look at what's in there. So I've got these sports photos, and again, if I want to, I can choose to email a link to somebody. So I'm going to click on that. And again, I have the opportunity to either copy the URL from here, or I can actually email that URL to somebody else by filling out this form. So I'm going to pause for a minute and see if there's some more questions. Is there a limit on how many images can be shared? No, there is not. Okay, so you can share as many as you like. So thank you for that question, Deb. Okay, so well, actually, I think maybe your question goes back to the contact sheet, and there is a limit on that, and I think it's set to about 200 images, which is, I can't imagine you'd want to share more than 200 images in a contact sheet. But these other sharing methods, are not limited. Okay, so you can pretty much do anything you want. Okay, let's talk about some other ways to convey and share information and work collaboratively in your Merlin system. So I'm going to close this out. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is you can actually add comments to an item. So for example, if I really like this picture of the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, okay, this is an older photo, notice it already has a comment on it. You can see this red commenting icon that appears in my metadata palette. And because I had the comments show up in my badges, it's showing up there as well. So you can see my commenting icon in the upper right-hand corner. When I hover over it, it tells me I have one comment. And so if I go to the commenting tool, it will open up the commenting thread. And you can see that the person logged in as David B., which is actually me, added the comment, nice football snap, and I could add additional comments to this picture, or other people could add comments to this picture as well. And what's really nice about this, as other users add comments, the commenting thread gets emailed around. But that requires that you do one thing, that you go ahead and you come in here and you edit your profile, and you add your username to your profile here. You can see it's cut off a little bit at the top here, but I can drag a photo of myself into here if I wanted to, or add my email address, and that way I'm getting the comments emailed back to me when other people make comments. Okay? All right. Let's continue on that thread. So commenting is kind of a simple way to work collaboratively and share information back and forth. I have a more comprehensive way of doing that, and that's our full-blown approval workflow. Okay, and that's this button right here. So for example, I could click this button in my metadata palette. It's the thumbs up button, and I could add a new approval to that particular item, and I can add a description to this, and this is, I need approval by legal in order to use this for our magazine cover. Okay, and then I can actually set a deadline in here, and even a deadline time, and I can choose from a list of people who are denoted as approvers. So in order for this to work, the approver has to, the person has to be denoted as an approver, and they will show up in this list. And I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And you can now see that this particular item does have an approval associated with it, an approving request. And the way you manage these requests is you go up to the new Approval Dashboard. Now, this is a new feature in Merlin 5.5, so it's just now being rolled out. And if I click on this, you will see that these are the items that are waiting for my approval, and these are the items that I've asked to be approved by other users, okay? And so you can see I've got the status of these different items in here, things that I'm asked to approve and things that I need to approve. And if I want to, I can go click on this and change the approval status to approved or not approved, okay? And I can even add a comment to this and send the comment and send that along with the email, okay? So that's pretty straightforward. Yet another way to convey information to your users and get that information back. And so what I want to do is I want to swing back to my email and show you some examples of some of these emails that Merlin moves around, what they might look like, okay? So for example, here's one. This is what the email looks like when you send someone a link to one or more photos. And so if I click this link, it will download and send me the link to these items. But you can see the link expires in 24 hours, so this link probably is not valid anymore within this email, okay? But that's what that link looks like. You also have the alert email that I showed you already. And here's what a link looks like to a contact sheet, right? So if you sent someone a contact sheet, and here's the message, here is a contact sheet, and you would probably include more information in this message. I just didn't type a lot. And then you would be able to click that link and get a copy of the contact sheet. And here's what an approval request looks like. It says Randy has added a new approval review request to this asset ID. The description is this okay? And so again, if I click on this, it will take me to that item so that I'm able to review it and approve it. So I'm going to pause for a second. We're getting close to running out of time. So I've got lots of questions here, so let me run through them real quick. So, yep, I see. I'm sorry, sad face. You want a border color, so let me see what I can do. And Deb asked, is there a limit? So I think I've answered all of your questions that I've got for today. Let me just look and make sure and see if there's anything in the chat window. No, there's not. So that's what I wanted to convey to you. So there's lots of ways to collaborate and lots of ways to communicate with your users inside of the Merlin interface. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Thanks, everybody.